In today's video, I'm showing how I changed out my electrical outlets on my own without an electrician, saving myself about $800. I'll explain that later, but here I am turning off the main power, all power on the electrical panel. Here I'm going to show you guys what I bought. This is a 10 pack of outlets. They do sell them individually. If you're changing out a lot, save yourself some money, buy the pack. These are wires. I thought I'd have to ground at least 2 wires. This is the outlet cover. This is a wire cutter. You might need a wire cutter, but you will definitely need screwdrivers, both flathead and Phillip screwdrivers. Here I'm showing you exactly how I take the plug apart. That was the cover, and it requires a flathead usually, and then the outlet itself to remove it from the wall usually requires a Phillip screwdriver. So that's what I'm doing here. So I got an estimate to replace 5 plugs, and they came in at $150, which is $30 per plug, $200, which is $40 per plug, and $250, which is $50 a plug. So at 23 plugs, it would have cost me nearly $900. I'm sure they would have given some kind of discount, so I'm going to say $800. I saved about $800 doing this myself. If you know what you're doing, these plugs should only take about 5 minutes each. So even at $800 is a steep price. So what I'm doing here is disassembling it from the wires that actually give it power. On the left side is silver screws with a green screw, which is where you attach the wires. The green screw is the grounding wire, and the other 2 are the wires you connect the white wires to. So silver wires, the white wires connect to. And on the right side, I'll switch the camera, are gold screws. And usually there's 2 black wires over here to connect them to, but on this particular plug, there was a red and black wire. These were really easy because I just held up the other plug, and the third prong is down, the grounding plug is down, and reconnected the wires the way they were shown in the picture. Now, mind you, the wires that are coming from the house or out of that outlet, those wires are really stiff, and it actually took me some time to push those back in, to maneuver those. Here is the plug I used. You have silver screws and the grounding wire on one side, and on the other side you have the gold screws. So again, remember, the white wires go to the silver screws, and the black wires go to the gold screws. And here I'm just trying to put the wires back on. Remember, overall they are pretty stiff, but I did want to really give you guys an idea of what I was doing. At the bottom there's the grounding wire. It's usually green, and the grounding wire is the wire that has no wire covering or coating on it. It's really hard to confuse. This was the first one that I changed out, so it took me a bit of time to do it, but once I got the hang of it, I was on a roll. But my motivation for changing them out was to save money. If you guys have been on the channel for a while, you know that I like to do things around the house. Number 1, it keeps me busy, but number 2, it also saves me money, and it forces me to learn about other things. And I felt like a contortionist with some of the plugs with, furniture around and things like that. Let me know if you do any DIY around your house, and what is it you enjoy doing, what you felt was a challenge for you, and what your next project might be. Let me know if you're thinking about changing out any electrical outlets. It did seem really scary at first. When I talked to my electrician, he told me to turn off the power in the rooms because he changed out the electrical panel. Turn off the power in the rooms I was working in, but I knew I'd kind of be all over. So that's why I suggest you turn off the main master. Turn off the main power to the house. For the time I did this, I had no power in the house. I didn't want any mistakes, or I didn't want to go to a room and forget that, I had not changed out the power in that particular room. So this is me putting the outlet back in the wall, and now as you can see, I am placing the cover over it. And as I said, those wires behind were stiff, so it was kind of hard for me to get the plug itself back kind of flush with the wall. And at times I would try to use the handle on the screwdriver to push it in so that it was as flat as it could be. They were not hard. I would suggest you take out the plugs and look at them, but it's definitely not hard. And this is just me trying to get it flush. And the plate goes back on. And that plug was done. Now, I have two of these in my house. One is in my bedroom, one is in another bedroom. These plugs are original. This is what gave me the inspiration to change out my plugs. Notice there is no third prong. And when I would plug up my computer over there, I would hear crackling. So I wanted to make sure that I had the latest in terms of electrical and safety. When I took that cover off, I realized that was original. These are Miracle Wipes for paint. The screws have been painted over, and so I took one and wrapped it around the screwdriver, and then wiped it over the plug to remove some of the paint so that I could get the screw out. And it takes me a minute to get this out. Again, notice it does not have the third prong. These plugs are from the 1950s going into the early 60s. Notice that grounded plug was not attached to anything. There was no way to ground the plug. And the wires were actually on the back and not connected to. So the ground wire was never connected. And this is what it looks like from the back. I put a call in to ask someone. The first one I did had two white wires on the side and I believe a red and black on the other side. The other one just had one white wire, one black wire, one on each side, and the ground wire. So this one is totally different from all the other ones I've done. And I'm definitely trying to figure out how to do it correctly and bring the plug up to modern day, because this is definitely old school right here. So now I believe I'm in my daughter's room, and this is the second plug that looked exactly like the other one, and I was determined to get these changed out in this first go round of changing out electrical outlets. And again, I end up using the wipes on these, and I have a very fine screwdriver where I'm trying to like get it in between and scrape off some of the paint. I end up using the wipes again, and to help me loosen the screws. But I definitely wanted to show you guys, the whole process, so that if you're going to follow in my lead, you have pretty much the information you need. Now, remember, I'm not an electrician. What I did beforehand is, a while ago, I looked at videos because I had been considering it. I called the electrician who, instructed me and answered my questions. And then when I put in the call that I talked about, it was to the guy I normally have do work around the house. He's a craftsman. And so when I got stuck on the other plug that looked just like this one, I had somebody on standby to call to figure out, what to do. Again, this is one that's missing a third prong. This one is not going to have the ground wire. These are really old school plugs. They still worked, but after I would hear the crackling with my computer, it just kind of scared me. And so I wanted to make sure I was up to standards when it came to safety. So using the wipes, help remove some of the paint. And then I kind of had to pry the metal piece off. Right here, I'm just removing the screws that attaches the outlet to the wall. See how some of the paint came off with it? That wire there, that's the ground wire. And these, with the two old school plugs I had, they were connected in the back, which the other plugs, none of the other plugs were like that. So the other plugs have been changed out, and they were quite hard to get off. I thought I'd have to cut, some of the wires, but I was able to get it off. Again, remember, the wires are really stiff. For me, they were hard to push back in the wall, and I end up, and you'll see it, where I take the wire cutter and kind of round the, here I am with the wire cutters, and I'm rounding the tips to go around the screws. Again, black wires go to the gold screws, and the white wires go to the silver screws on the other side. On the side where the silver screws are, you see there, the green screw at the bottom, that is the grounding wire. So if you have plugs and the grounding wire is not there, that green screw is for that grounding wire, and that is what you will use to connect that wire. Also, if you have to use the wire cutters, you can cut all the way through the wire, or you can just cut some of the skin off of the wires if you need to. Y'all, don't ask me why I had gloves on, these type of gloves on, but I think I was scared of the creepy crawlies that may come out the wall, and that is why I put the gloves on. These are not necessarily the gloves you would need if you're changing out electrical outlets. I just decided to put them on. Things that crawl really creep me out, And so I did not want to be touching anything, um, if a bug ran out. But here again, connecting the screws, and trying to ensure that they are secure. And then we'll try to push it back in the wall once the wires are on the screws and I feel like they're secure. And I think on this one, as I tried to put them back, I could tell that the screws weren't as secure on the wires as they should be. And so you will see me try to push it in and then pull it out and readjust. And I say do that, if you have to. These are wires, and you don't, you want to make sure they work when it's all said and done. The more I did, the faster I got with doing it, but the two that didn't have the third prong took some time. I had to release the paint and then get the screws out. Um, Grounding the wire wasn't that big of a deal. Um, so I would say the two that took me the longest were the older two that were in the house. And again, I'm still fooling around with these wires. Now I'm actually using the wire cutters. They're closed, but what I'm trying to do here is push the wires back into the wall. Some of the excess with the wires. Now, see, I'm readjusting the wires. Either they wouldn't go in the wall correctly, or I just felt like they were not secure. So I'm readjusting, retightening. The struggle was real with some of these plugs, trying to get them back into the wall. As I said, the wires that attach were very rigid, and I think if you have, like, good strength, then it shouldn't be that difficult. But I just work with it, and I would say that was probably really the hardest part, is getting those wires back in the wall, and then making sure that plug was flush with the wall. Again, I wanted to make sure you guys saw, how I did this, and some of the struggles that I had, because if you're not used to doing it, you may run into the same thing. But overall, I was satisfied with this. Don't forget, when you're done, to turn your power back on. That's the only way the plugs are going to work. And this is the final look of my plugs. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Good day.